The night is alive with music and chatter as I step into the country club. The atmosphere is vibrant, the kind of place where everyone pretends to have their life together. I've been to enough of these charity auctions to know the drill: smiles, handshakes, and overpriced wine. Tonight, though, something feels different, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Sarah, my wife of 25 years, is already here. She's at the center of the room, her laugh echoing above the noise. There's a glow about her tonight, but not the kind I'm used to. She's leaning in close to Alex, a man I've always had an uneasy feeling about. His hand brushes her arm, and they share a private smile. My chest tightens. I move through the crowd, forcing a smile at acquaintances while my eyes never leave them. My mind races. Sarah and I have been distant for months. Small arguments turned into cold silences, and now I can't ignore the growing gap between us. But this feels like more than a coincidence. I grab a drink from the bar, needing something to steady the swirling thoughts in my head. As I raise the glass, I catch sight of Alex and Sarah again. This time, his hand is lower, almost at her waist, as they sway to the music. My grip on the glass tightens, and I feel the blood rushing to my ears. "Calm down, Chris," I mutter under my breath. "You need proof." The dance ends, and I watch as they step out onto the moonlit patio. They're talking, their body language intimate. I follow, keeping to the shadows, my heart pounding with every step. My stomach churns as Alex leans in closer, and then it happens, a kiss. Not a casual peck, but something deeper, something undeniable. The air feels thick, and my fists clench at my sides. I want to storm out there, demand an explanation, but something holds me back. Instead, I turn and walk briskly to the valet. "Leaving so soon, Mr. Callahan?" the attendant asks, surprised. "There's nothing here I want anymore," I reply coldly, getting into my car. The drive home is a blur. My phone buzzes incessantly, her name lighting up the screen. I don't answer. Not now. Not yet. I need time to think, to plan my next move. The house feels empty when I arrive. I sit in the dark, staring at nothing, the weight of betrayal settling over me like a heavy fog. She's not just my wife. She's the woman I built my life with, the mother of my children. And now, she's something else entirely. A sound at the door breaks my thoughts. She's here. My pulse quickens as the door opens, and her voice cuts through the silence. "What the hell is your problem, Chris? Why did you leave me there?" she demands, slamming her purse onto the counter. I stand, facing her. My voice is calm, too calm. "What was I supposed to do, Sarah? Stick around while you let another man kiss you?" Her face pales, and for a moment, she's speechless. Then she finds her footing. "It wasn't what it looked like." "Don't," I interrupt, stepping closer. "Don't insult me with lies." Her eyes dart to the floor, but she doesn't deny it. My heart cracks, the sound almost audible in my ears. "Let's make one thing clear," I say, my voice like steel. "I don't know who you are anymore, but I'm not going to be anyone's fool." The room falls silent as my words hang in the air. She looks at me, her eyes shimmering with something. Regret? Fear? But I don't wait for her response. I turn and walk upstairs, the sound of her sobs following me like a ghost. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The morning light creeps into the bedroom, but I haven't slept. I've spent hours replaying last night over and over, dissecting every detail of what I saw. The kiss wasn't just an act of betrayal. It was a spark that ignited something deep inside me, something cold and calculating. If Sarah wants to play games, she has no idea who she's up against. I hear her downstairs, the faint sound of the coffee machine whirring to life. The usual routine, as if nothing has changed. I throw on a shirt and jeans, ignoring the mess I left in my room. My focus sharpens as I grab my phone, pulling up a contact I haven't spoken to in years. Nick, a private investigator I helped out once, back in my corporate days. If anyone can help me find the truth, it's him. When Sarah sees me enter the kitchen, she freezes mid-sip. "You didn't come down last night," she says cautiously. I pour myself a cup of coffee, not meeting her eyes. "Didn't feel like it." "Chris, we need to talk," she starts, her voice trembling slightly. "Not now." I cut her off, my tone even. I have things to do. Her mouth opens as if to argue, but she thinks better of it. Instead, she watches me for a moment before turning back to her coffee. I walk past her and out the door, dialing Nick as soon as I'm in the car. "Chris Callahan," he answers, his voice gruff. "Long time." "I need your help," I say, cutting to the chase. "It's personal." There's a pause. "I don't usually do personal. This one's different," I insist. "It's my wife. I need to know everything. Where she goes, who she meets, what she's hiding. I need proof." Nick exhales heavily. "You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I reply, the weight of my decision settling over me. "All right," he says. "Send me her details, and I'll get started." I hang up, my grip on the steering wheel tightening. This isn't about revenge, it's about clarity. If there's any part of Sarah's story worth salvaging, I'll find it. But if not, I'll be ready. The day drags as I go through the motions at work, pretending everything is normal. Inside, I'm on edge, waiting for Nick's call. When it finally comes, it's late afternoon. I step into the empty break room, my heart pounding as I answer. "She's at the club again," Nick says. "Same guy." I don't even flinch. "Keep watching. I want everything." "Understood," he replies. "I'll be in touch." I hang up and stare at the phone, my mind spinning. It's one thing to suspect, but knowing she's meeting him again sends a fresh wave of anger through me. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This is just the beginning. When I get home that evening, Sarah is waiting in the living room. She's dressed casually, but her makeup is done, and her hair is styled. Subtle signs I used to overlook. "I ordered takeout," she says, trying to sound casual. I nod, taking a seat across from her. "How was your day?" She looks surprised by the question, then cautiously replies, "Fine. Nothing exciting." Her lie hangs in the air like a thick fog, but I don't call her out. "Not yet. I'll be working late tomorrow," she adds, her voice tight. "Big project at the office." I smile faintly. "Do what you need to." She studies me for a moment, as if trying to gauge my mood. When she doesn't find anything, she stands and disappears into the kitchen. My phone buzzes in my pocket, a text from Nick. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Be ready." I glance toward the kitchen, where Sarah hums softly as she prepares our plates. She doesn't know it yet, but tomorrow, the truth will finally come out. The next evening, I'm parked 2 blocks away from the club, the engine idling as I wait for Nick's signal. My hands rest on the steering wheel, fingers drumming in a steady rhythm. The anticipation is like a live wire running through me. I don't know what I'll see tonight, but I know one thing. I won't let Sarah's lies blindside me any longer. The text comes just as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the streets in shades of gold and crimson. She's inside. Red dress. Same guy, Alex. He's wearing a black suit. A red dress. Of course, she chose something bold. Something meant to stand out. My jaw tightens as I put the car in gear and drive toward the club. The valet takes my keys without a word, and I step inside, greeted by the familiar hum of chatter and clinking glasses. I spot her almost immediately. She's at the bar, laughing at something Alex just said. His hand rests lightly on her back, a casual intimacy that speaks volumes. For a moment, the scene freezes, every sound fading into the background. All I can see is them. Her smile, his proximity, the ease between them that should never exist. My heart pounds, but I don't approach. Not yet. Instead, I slip into the shadows, finding a spot where I can watch unnoticed. Nick texts again. They're heading to the patio. I follow, staying close but out of sight. The cool night air hits me as I step onto the patio, and there they are, standing near the railing. Sarah leans in close to Alex, her body language relaxed and open. Then, he touches her face, his thumb brushing her cheek before he leans in and kisses her. I grip the edge of the patio door, the cool metal biting into my palm. Every instinct screams at me to storm over, to pull them apart, to demand answers. But I don't. Instead, I pull out my phone and take a photo. The flash is off, the sound muted. One picture, then another, each click a silent confirmation of the truth. Alex pulls back, whispering something I can't hear, and Sarah laughs. It's a sound I used to live for, but now it feels like a knife twisting in my gut. My phone buzzes again. Nick, want me to confront him? No, I type back quickly. Not here. I slip away, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Back in the car, I stare at the photos. The evidence is damning, undeniable. My breath comes in short bursts, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. But I can't let it consume me. Not yet. The house is dark when I get home, Sarah not far behind. She walks in a few minutes later, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I'm sitting in the living room, a glass of whiskey in hand. You're up late, she says, feigning casualness. Couldn't sleep, I reply, my voice steady. She hesitates, her eyes scanning me as if searching for a clue to my mood. I'm going to bed, she says finally. I nod, watching her retreat up the stairs. Once she's out of sight, I pull out my phone and text Nick. Get me everything you can on Alex. His work, his relationships, his weaknesses. I want it all. On it, Nick replies. I set the phone down, my mind already racing ahead. Tonight was just the start. Sarah may think she's won, but she doesn't know the game I'm playing. The morning sun filters through the blinds as I sit at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. Nick's report on Alex came through overnight. I scroll through the document, each new detail adding fuel to the fire already burning inside me. Alex Mayfield, 38, divorced, works in real estate development, lives in a high-rise downtown, known for his charm, and for leaving a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts. He's a predator, the kind who preys on vulnerable women looking for excitement in their otherwise mundane lives. Sarah is one of his latest targets, but I refuse to let her be another notch on his belt. My thoughts are interrupted as Sarah enters the kitchen. She's wearing a casual outfit, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, acting as if everything is normal. She pours herself a cup of coffee and sits across from me. You're up early, she says, trying to sound lighthearted. Couldn't sleep, I reply, keeping my tone neutral. How was your evening? She pauses, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. Fine. Just a late meeting. A late meeting. My jaw tightens, but I don't react. I say, letting the silence stretch. What about you? She asks, clearly trying to steer the conversation away. I stayed in, I reply simply, my eyes boring into hers. Had some time to think. Sarah shifts uncomfortably in her chair, but before she can respond, my phone buzzes. It's Nick again, sending over more photos from last night. I glance at the screen and feel my blood simmer. He captured everything. The kiss, the way Sarah leaned into Alex, even the way she laughed at his whispered words. Something important? She asks, gesturing to my phone. Just work, I reply, sliding the phone into my pocket. You know how it is. Her lips press into a thin line, and she finishes her coffee without another word. As she gets up to leave, I watch her closely, the weight of what I know making it hard to breathe. When the door closes behind her, I immediately call Nick. I want to move forward, I say, my voice firm. All right, Nick replies. What's the plan? I need Alex to know who he's messing with, I say, and Sarah needs to feel the consequences of her choices. Nick exhales on the other end. You're sure about this? More than ever, I reply. Send those photos to me. I have someone to meet. By noon, I'm parked outside Alex's office. The building is sleek, modern, a testament to his success, or at least the illusion of it. I watch as he exits the building, his stride confident, his phone pressed to his ear. My fingers itch to confront him right then and there, but I resist. This has to be strategic. I follow him discreetly as he walks to a nearby cafe. Once he's settled at a table, I make my move, walking over and placing the photos on the table in front of him. He looks up, startled, his charming smile faltering as his eyes scan the images. Who the hell are you? He asks, his voice low but tense. Someone you shouldn't have crossed, I reply, my tone icy. Stay away from Sarah. Consider this your only warning. Alex leans back in his chair, trying to regain his composure. Look, man, I don't know what you think you know. I know enough. I cut him off, my voice sharp. This ends now. If I see you near her again, I'll make sure everyone in your circle sees these. I tap the photos for emphasis. His expression hardens, but he doesn't argue. Instead, he nods slowly, his lips pressed into a thin line. Fine, he mutters. It's over. Good, I reply, standing. And Alex? Don't test me. As I walk away, my pulse races. The confrontation felt good, but it's only the beginning. Sarah and I still have unfinished business, and I intend to handle it on my terms. I pull into the driveway just as Sarah's car backs out. She slows, rolling down her window, her expression neutral. I'll be home late tonight, she says, her tone clipped. Another meeting. I nod, not bothering to challenge her. Drive safe. She gives me a brief look, almost like she's searching for something in my eyes. When she finds nothing, she drives off. I watch her car disappear down the street, a strange mix of anger and anticipation coursing through me. Inside the house, I grab my phone and scroll through the photos of Sarah and Alex again. My hand tightens around the device as the memories of their stolen kiss flash in my mind. But something shifts as I look closer. The laughter in her eyes, the ease in her body language. It's a version of her I haven't seen in years. A pang of guilt hits me. When was the last time I made her laugh like that? The thought quickly turns to bitterness. Whatever we've lost, she didn't come to me to fix it. She turned to him. That choice was hers. I shove the phone into my pocket and head to the garage. It's a mess of tools and half-finished projects, a reflection of my life. Maybe. I spend hours in there, working aimlessly on an old motorbike I've been meaning to restore. It's the only thing that calms the storm inside. By the time Sarah comes home, it's nearly midnight. I hear her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, her movements careful, almost tentative. She pauses outside the garage, then opens the door. "You're still up?" she asks, leaning against the frame. I glance at her briefly before returning to the engine in front of me. Couldn't sleep. She steps inside, the smell of motor oil hitting her. "We need to talk, Chris." "Now?" I ask, my voice edged with fatigue. "Yes," she says firmly, moving closer. "I've noticed how distant you've been lately. I feel like you're pulling away." A bitter laugh escapes me. "You feel like I'm pulling away? That's rich, Sarah." "What's that supposed to mean?" she snaps, her hands on her hips. I straighten, meeting her gaze for the first time. "You really don't see it, do you? The lies, the distance, the way you've completely shut me out." Her face pales, and for a moment, she looks genuinely taken aback. "I don't know what you're talking about." I reach into my pocket, pulling out my phone and scrolling to the photos. I thrust it toward her, the screen illuminated with the image of her and Alex on the patio. "Explain this." Her eyes widen as she stares at the screen, her hands trembling slightly. "Chris, save it." I cut her off, my voice cold. "You've been lying to me for months, Sarah. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I wouldn't find out?" "It's not what it looks like," she says, her voice breaking. "Alex, he's just a friend." I bark out a humorless laugh, shaking my head. "A friend? That's the best you've got? Friends don't kiss like that. Friends don't meet in secret." Her eyes fill with tears, and she looks away, unable to meet my gaze. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispers. I feel the words like a punch to the gut, but I force myself to stay calm. "Why, Sarah? Why him? Why not come to me if something was wrong?" She exhales shakily, her shoulders slumping. "Because you weren't there. You haven't been there for a long time, Chris. And that's your excuse?" I snap, my anger rising. "Instead of fixing what's broken, you go and shatter it completely?" Her tears fall freely now, but I can't bring myself to comfort her. The betrayal is too raw. "I don't know how we got here," she says, her voice barely audible. I take a step back, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Neither do I reply. "But I do know one thing. This ends tonight." "What does that mean?" she asks, her voice trembling. "It means I'm done pretending everything is fine," I say. "If you want to fix this, you'd better start proving it. Otherwise, we're finished." Her sobs echo as I walk past her, leaving her alone in the dimly lit garage. The door closes behind me with a heavy thud. The house is eerily silent as I make my way upstairs, leaving Sarah in the garage. Her sobs still echo in my mind, but I force myself to push them aside. If she wants to fight for this marriage, she needs to start now. Otherwise, I'll walk away without a second glance. In my room, I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the wedding photo on the dresser. It's a moment frozen in time, a happier version of us. My hand itches to throw the frame across the room, but I stop myself. This isn't just about anger, it's about clarity. The next morning, Sarah is already in the kitchen when I come downstairs. Her eyes are red and puffy, her usual polished appearance replaced with something raw and unguarded. She looks up as I enter, and for a moment, there's a flicker of hope in her eyes. I ignore it, pouring myself a cup of coffee and leaning against the counter. "I want to talk," she says softly. "Go ahead," I reply, keeping my tone neutral. She takes a deep breath, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I made a mistake, Chris. I let things get out of control with Alex, but I swear, I didn't." "Don't," I interrupt, my voice sharp. "Don't minimize it. Don't try to make it sound better than it is." Her eyes fill with tears again, but she nods. "You're right. I messed up. I was selfish and stupid, and I hurt you in ways I can't take back. But I want to fix this." "Fix it?" I echo, my voice laced with disbelief. "How do you fix something that's been completely shattered?" "I don't know," she admits, her voice trembling, "but I'm willing to try, if you'll let me." The sincerity in her voice catches me off guard, but I don't let it show. "It's not that simple, Sarah," I say. "Trust isn't something you can just glue back together." "I know," she says quickly, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn it back." I study her for a moment, searching for any sign of deception. She looks genuine, but then again, she always did. Finally, I nod. "All right, let's start with the truth." She swallows hard, her hands trembling. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," I say, my voice steady. "How long has this been going on? What else haven't you told me?" Her gaze drops to the table, and she takes a shaky breath. "It started a few months ago. Alex and I would talk at events, and I guess I liked the attention. It felt good to be noticed." My fists clench at her words, but I stay silent, letting her continue. It never went beyond a kiss," she says quickly, as if trying to soften the blow. "I know that doesn't make it better, but it's the truth." I nod slowly, processing her words. "And the cabin? The wine? The sheets?" Her head snaps up, confusion written across her face. "The cabin? Chris, I haven't been to the cabin in months." Her denial feels genuine, but I'm not ready to believe her. "I found evidence, Sarah. If it wasn't you, then who?" She looks genuinely puzzled, her brow furrowed. "I don't know. I swear." Her reaction throws me off. Could it really have been someone else? My mind races, trying to piece together the puzzle, but the picture remains incomplete. "We're not done here," I say, standing. "But for now, I need space. Don't expect forgiveness overnight." "I understand," she whispers, her voice barely audible. As I walk away, I can feel her eyes on me, heavy with guilt and regret. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The day drags on as I try to focus on work, but my mind keeps circling back to Sarah's words. Her denial about the cabin was so earnest it left me questioning everything. Could someone else have been there? And if so, who? The idea feels like a fresh betrayal layered on top of the first. By mid-afternoon, I can't take it anymore. I call Nick. His voice is gruff when he picks up, likely busy with another case. "What now, Chris?" he asks. "I need you to dig into the cabin," I say without preamble. "Someone's been there, and I need to know who." "You think it wasn't Sarah?" he asks, surprise evident in his tone. "I'm not sure of anything anymore," I admit. "Just check. Bank statements, surveillance cameras in the area, anything that could give me answers." "Got it," Nick replies. "I'll get back to you." I hang up, my mind swirling with possibilities. If Sarah wasn't at the cabin, then someone else was. And whoever it was, they've managed to worm their way into the wreckage of my life. When I get home that evening, the house feels quieter than usual. Sarah's car is in the driveway, but the lights are dim. I find her in the living room, curled up on the couch with a blanket draped over her. She looks up when I enter, her face etched with fatigue. "You're home late," she says softly. "I had things to take care of," I reply, my tone neutral. She nods, looking down at her hands. For a moment, the silence between us feels suffocating, but I don't have the energy to break it. Instead, I head upstairs, leaving her alone in the shadows. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The weight of everything presses down on me, making it hard to breathe. Memories of our life together flash through my mind. Good times, bad times, and everything in between. It all feels so distant now, like it happened to someone else. The buzz of my phone jolts me from my thoughts. It's Nick. "You're not gonna like this," he says, his voice heavy. "Just tell me," I reply, my stomach twisting. "I checked the cabin's surrounding area," he begins. "No cameras nearby, but I found something else. Your son, David. He used your cabin recently." "What?" The word comes out louder than I intended. "There's a transaction on his account. A bottle of wine purchased at a store near the cabin. Same day you found that mess." My grip on the phone tightens as anger bubbles to the surface. "You're telling me David was there? With someone?" "Looks that way," Nick replies. "You want me to keep digging?" "No," I say, my voice hard. "I'll handle this." I hang up and sit in the darkness, my mind racing. If David was at the cabin, that means he's been lying to me, too. The betrayal stings even more knowing it came from my own family. The next morning, I confront him. I wait until he drops by the house, his usual cocky smile plastered on his face. It fades quickly when he sees my expression. "Dad?" he asks cautiously. "We need to talk," I say, my voice cold. "About the cabin." His eyes widen, and for a moment, he looks like a deer caught in headlights. "What about it?" he asks, trying to sound casual. "Don't play dumb," I snap. "I know you were there. I know what you did. Start talking." David stammers, his confidence crumbling. It was just one time," he finally admits. "Emma and I, we had a fight and you what?" I demand, cutting him off. "You brought someone else to my cabin?" He looks down, unable to meet my eyes. "It didn't mean anything," he mutters. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I repeat, my voice rising. "You think you can just brush this off like it's nothing?" "Dad, I'm sorry," he says quickly. "It won't happen again, I swear." "Damn right it won't," I snap. "Because if I ever hear about you pulling something like this again, you'll have more to worry about than Emma finding out." David nods quickly, his face pale. "I get it. I'm sorry." I don't respond. Instead, I walk away, leaving him to stew in his guilt. The damage is done, but at least now I have one less question hanging over me. The tension in the house feels like it could snap at any moment. After confronting David, my anger hasn't subsided. It's only shifted, leaving me with more questions than answers. Sarah tries to talk to me several times throughout the day, but I brush her off. She may want to fix things, but I need space to sort through the chaos. That evening, Nick sends me another update. Alex hasn't reached out to Sarah since I confronted him, and it appears their relationship has been severed. But there's something else in Nick's report that makes my blood run cold. Alex wasn't just a player. He was actively pursuing women for financial gain. According to Nick, Alex has a history of charming his way into women's lives, gaining their trust, and then manipulating them into investing in his various schemes. Sarah might not have fallen for it yet, but she was clearly on his radar. The thought makes my fist clench. I wasn't just betrayed. I was nearly collateral damage in someone else's con. I head to the living room where Sarah is seated, flipping through a magazine that she clearly isn't reading. She looks up as I enter, her face cautious. "Can we talk now?" she asks tentatively. I sit across from her, leaning forward with my elbows on my knees. "What do you really know about Alex?" She looks confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, did he ever ask you for money? Try to involve you in some kind of deal?" I ask, my tone sharp. Her eyes widen. "No, of course not. Chris, what's going on?" I pull out my phone and show her the information Nick gathered. This is Alex. Charming women, manipulating them, and draining their bank accounts. He's a parasite, Sarah. You weren't just being unfaithful, you were being played. She stares at the screen, her face paling as she reads the details. I didn't know, she whispers. I swear, Chris, I had no idea. I don't respond, watching her closely. She looks genuinely horrified, but it's hard to trust anything she says anymore. I feel like such an idiot, she mutters, tears pooling in her eyes. How could I have been so stupid? You tell me, I say, my voice cold. How did you let this happen? She shakes her head, her hands trembling. I was lonely, okay? I felt invisible. And then Alex paid attention to me, made me feel like I mattered. But I never thought, that's the problem. I cut her off. You didn't think. You let some con man worm his way into your life because it was easier than dealing with our problems. Her tears spill over, but I don't feel sympathy. Not yet. I'm sorry, she whispers. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. I stand, pacing the room. Sorry isn't enough, Sarah. I need to know that this stops now. No more lies. No more secrets. It's over, she says quickly. I haven't spoken to Alex since that night, and I never will again. I'll do whatever it takes to prove it to you. I pause, considering her words. You want to prove it? Fine. I want access to everything. Your phone, your emails, your calendar. If there's anything else you're hiding, I'll find it. She hesitates for only a moment before nodding. Okay, whatever you need. Good, I say, sitting back down, because I'm done playing games. The conversation ends, but the unease lingers. Trust is a fragile thing, and Sarah shattered it completely. Whether she can rebuild it remains to be seen. For now, I'll keep watching, waiting for the cracks to appear. The next few days are a test for both of us. True to her word, Sarah hands over everything. Her phone, her laptop, even access to her private accounts. I spend hours combing through her messages and emails, looking for any lingering signs of deceit. It feels invasive, wrong even, but after everything that's happened, I can't take her at her word. To my surprise, there's nothing incriminating. No hidden messages to Alex, no secret accounts. She's clean. Still, the damage is done, and trust doesn't rebuild itself overnight. One evening, as I scroll through her phone for what feels like the 100th time, Sarah speaks up from across the room. How much longer are you going to do this? She asks, her voice calm but tinged with sadness. As long as it takes, I reply without looking up. She doesn't argue, just nods and returns to the book she's been pretending to read. The silence between us is heavy, but at least it's no longer hostile. That's progress, I suppose. The next morning, I receive a call from Nick. Got something you might want to hear, he says. Go on, I reply, my stomach tightening. Alex's real estate gig? It's a front. Turns out he's been laundering money for some shady clients. I don't know how deep it goes, but it's serious. I lean back in my chair, processing the information. Does Sarah know? Doubt it, Nick replies. She doesn't seem like the type to get involved in something like this, but you never know. Keep digging, I say. I want to know everything. After hanging up, I sit in silence, my mind racing. If Alex is mixed up in something illegal, Sarah might be in more danger than she realizes. I decide it's time to confront her again, but this time, the stakes are even higher. That evening, I wait for Sarah to get home. When she walks through the door, she looks surprised to see me standing in the living room, my arms crossed. Chris, she asks cautiously. We need to talk, I say. She sets her purse down and sits on the couch, her expression wary. What is it? I take a seat across from her, my gaze steady. Nick found something. Alex isn't just a liar. He's a criminal. He's been laundering money through his fake real estate business. Her eyes widen in shock. What? Are you serious? Dead serious, I reply. And if you're connected to him in any way, it could blow back on you. I had no idea, she says quickly, her voice trembling. I swear, Chris, I didn't know. I study her closely, looking for any sign of deception. But all I see is fear, raw and unfiltered. For the first time in weeks, I believe her. All right, I say. Then we need to be smart about this. If Alex tries to contact you, you let me know immediately. No exceptions. She nods, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I will. I promise. The conversation lingers in the air as we sit in silence. For the first time, there's a sense of unity between us, a shared goal. It's fragile, but it's something. That night, as I lie awake in bed, I can't shake the feeling that this is far from over. Alex may be out of Sarah's life, but his shadow still looms large. And until he's completely out of the picture, I won't let my guard down. The next morning, the tension in the house is palpable. Sarah moves around the kitchen in silence, her movements careful and deliberate, as if afraid to disrupt the fragile truce between us. I sip my coffee, my mind already on the next steps. If Alex is as dangerous as Nick says, waiting for him to make the first move isn't an option. As Sarah heads to work, I dial Nick. He answers on the first ring. What's the plan, Chris? I need to meet with Alex, I say firmly. Nick pauses. You sure about that? He's not the kind of guy you want to corner. I don't care what kind of guy he is, I reply. I need to make sure he knows this is over, and I want him to know I'm not afraid of him. Nick sighs. All right, I'll get you an address. Later that day, I receive the location of Alex's office. It's in a sleek downtown building, the kind of place that screams success but hides rot beneath the surface. I park a block away and take a moment to steady myself. This isn't just about Sarah anymore. It's about protecting everything I've worked for. The receptionist barely glances at me as I walk in, her polished demeanor crumbling the moment I mention Alex's name. Do you have an appointment? She asks, her voice wavering. No, I reply, my tone sharp. But he'll want to see me. Before she can argue, I push past her, my footsteps echoing in the hallway as I make my way to his office. The door is slightly ajar, and I step inside without knocking. Alex looks up from his desk, surprise flashing across his face. Chris, he says smoothly, leaning back in his chair. To what do I owe the pleasure? I close the door behind me, my eyes locking onto his. You know exactly why I'm here. He smirks, a picture of arrogance. Sarah, I assume? Stay away from her, I say, my voice low and controlled. And while you're at it, stay out of my life. Alex chuckles, shaking his head. You're a little late, don't you think? Sarah made her choices. If you're here to play the jealous husband, you're wasting your time. I take a step closer, my fists clenched at my sides. This isn't about jealousy. It's about you being a parasite. I know what you are, Alex. I know about your scams, your cons. And if you ever try to involve Sarah, or anyone else I care about, I'll make sure the police know too. His smirk falters for a split second before he recovers, leaning forward with a predatory gleam in his eyes. You're bluffing. I pull out my phone, showing him the files Nick compiled. His jaw tightens as he scans the screen, the color draining from his face. Like I said, I continue. Stay out of my life. Alex stands, his composure cracking. You think you're untouchable, don't you? No, I reply, stepping closer until we're face to face. But I think you are. And that makes you predictable. Now, unless you want your entire operation to come crashing down, you'll walk away. From Sarah, from me, from everything. For a moment, we stand there, the tension thick enough to cut. Finally, Alex exhales sharply, running a hand through his hair. Fine, he mutters. It's over. It better be, I reply, turning on my heel and walking out. As I step into the street, the adrenaline still coursing through me, I can't help but feel a sense of triumph. Alex is out of the picture, but I know better than to let my guard down. People like him don't disappear quietly. Back at home, Sarah is waiting, her expression anxious. What happened? She asks. It's handled, I say simply, brushing past her. She follows me into the living room, her voice trembling. Chris, please, talk to me. I stop, turning to face her. We're not there yet, I say, but we're getting closer. Her eyes fill with tears, but she nods, understanding the unspoken truth. This fight isn't over. Not for us, not for me. The house is still as I sit in the living room, staring into the flickering flames of the fireplace. Sarah has gone to bed, her attempt at conversation earlier falling flat. My confrontation with Alex played out exactly as I wanted, but the aftermath feels hollow. Removing him from the equation doesn't erase the damage that's already been done. I glance at my phone. Nick sent me a final update earlier in the evening, confirming Alex's operations are under scrutiny by authorities. If he tries anything now, he'll be dealing with more than just me. It's a small victory, but it doesn't feel like enough. The next morning, Sarah surprises me by coming downstairs early. She's dressed simply, her hair still damp from the shower. There's a nervous energy about her, as if she's bracing for another argument. "I made coffee," she says softly, placing a cup in front of me. "Thanks," I reply, taking a sip. She sits across from me, her hands wrapped around her own cup. "I've been thinking," she begins, her voice hesitant, "about us, about everything." I set my cup down, giving her my full attention. "Go on." She takes a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the table. "I know I've hurt you, Chris. I know I broke something between us, and I don't expect you to forgive me easily. But I want to try to make this work. I want to be better, for you, for us." Her words catch me off guard. I've been so focused on my anger and her betrayal that I never considered she might feel just as lost in all of this. "I don't know if we can fix this, Sarah," I say honestly. "Trust doesn't come back overnight." "I know," she says quickly, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want." I study her for a moment, searching for any sign of insincerity. But she looks genuine, her eyes pleading with me to give her a chance. "All right," I say finally. "We'll try counseling, but I'm not making any promises." She nods, relief washing over her face. "Thank you," she whispers. The days that follow are tentative. We speak more, carefully navigating conversations that don't feel forced or filled with tension. It's a slow process, but it feels like a start. Our first counseling session is awkward. The therapist, a calm and composed woman named Dr. Harris, asks us to share our feelings openly. Sarah speaks first, her voice trembling as she describes the loneliness that led her to Alex, the guilt that's consumed her since. When it's my turn, I find it harder to articulate my emotions. I talk about the betrayal, the anger, and the sense of inadequacy I've been carrying. Dr. Harris listens intently, guiding us toward understanding rather than blame. After the session, Sarah looks at me as we walk to the car. "That wasn't so bad," she says, a faint smile on her lips. "No," I admit, "it wasn't." For the first time in weeks, I feel a glimmer of hope. It's faint, but it's there. That evening, I find myself in the garage, tinkering with the motorbike again. Sarah steps in, hesitating at the door. "Can I join you?" she asks. I nod, and she takes a seat on a stool nearby, watching as I work. We don't talk much, but her presence feels different now, less intrusive, more supportive. It's a small moment, but it feels significant. As the days turn into weeks, we settle into a new rhythm. The wounds between us are still raw, but the effort we're both putting in feels genuine. It's far from perfect, but it's a step forward. The weeks stretch on, and with them, the subtle shift in our lives. The counseling sessions, though awkward at first, begin to feel less like an obligation and more like a necessity. Dr. Harris has a way of cutting through the noise, forcing us to confront truths we both rather avoid. Sarah surprises me during one session by admitting something that stops me cold. "I didn't just feel neglected, Chris. I felt invisible, like I was a ghost in my own marriage." Her words hit harder than I expect. I've been so focused on her betrayal that I never stopped to consider the part one might have played in creating the distance between us. "I didn't see it," I admit quietly. "I was so caught up in work and everything else that I didn't see what it was doing to you, or to us." She looks at me, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm not excusing what I did, but I need you to know it wasn't because I stopped loving you." The session ends on a quieter note, but the conversation stays with me long after we leave Dr. Harris's office. Back at home, I find myself revisiting memories I've tried to bury. The early days of our marriage, when everything felt effortless. The nights we stayed up talking until dawn, planning a future that seemed bright and limitless. Somewhere along the way, we lost that version of ourselves. Now, I'm wondering if we can ever find it again. That evening, I catch Sarah in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepares dinner. It's such a simple, domestic scene, but there's something about it that stirs a long dormant part of me. Need any help? I ask, leaning against the counter. She looks up, surprised. Sure, you can chop the vegetables. I grab a knife and start working, the rhythm of the task calming. For a while, we don't speak, the sound of chopping and sizzling filling the space between us. But then Sarah breaks the silence. Do you ever think about us? She asks, her voice tentative. I mean, before all of this? All the time, I admit. And I wonder how we got here. Me too, she says softly, but I don't want to stay here. I want us to find a way back. I look at her, and for the first time in a long time, I see the woman I fell in love with. Not the one who hurt me, but the one who stood by me through so much. The realization is both comforting and terrifying. We'll try, I say finally. That's all we can do. The dinner we share that night is different. There's a lightness to it, a sense of connection that feels fragile but real. It's not a resolution, but it's a start. The next day, I take a bold step of my own. I dig through the cluttered drawers in my office until I find the old photo album we haven't touched in years. Flipping through it, I'm struck by the faces looking back at me. So young, so full of promise. When Sarah gets home, I'm waiting for her in the living room, the album open on the coffee table. She pauses, taking in the scene, and then slowly sits beside me. Where did you find this? She asks, her voice tinged with nostalgia. It was buried under a mountain of junk, I reply with a small smile. But I thought we could use a reminder. We spend hours flipping through the pages, laughing at old memories, sharing stories we'd nearly forgotten. By the time we close the album, there's a warmth between us that feels like a lifeline. For the first time in months, I feel like we're not just surviving, we're living. It's a small victory, but in a battle this hard-fought, every step forward counts. The warmth from our shared moment over the photo album lingers, but I know better than to let my guard down completely. Rebuilding a marriage is like fixing a cracked foundation. You can patch it up, but the damage needs more than surface repairs. The question is, do we both have the strength to keep going? The next few weeks pass in a fragile calm. Sarah and I fall into a tentative rhythm, our conversations deeper, our interactions more meaningful. The counseling sessions continue to push us, peeling back layers of resentment and unspoken pain. Each time, I leave feeling like we've climbed a little higher, but the summit is still out of reach. One night, as we're cleaning up after dinner, Sarah turns to me with a nervous expression. Chris, there's something I need to tell you. I stop mid-motion, my grip tightening on the dish towel. What is it? She takes a deep breath, her eyes locking onto mine. Alex reached out. The words hit like a gut punch. My first instinct is to lash out, but I force myself to stay calm. When? A week ago, she admits, her voice trembling. He called. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. What did he say? I ask, my tone colder than I intend. He apologized, she says quickly, said he regretted everything and wanted to talk. I deleted the message, Chris. I didn't want to tell you because I was afraid it would ruin the progress we've made. I stare at her, my chest tightening. And you're just telling me now? I didn't know how to bring it up, she says, her voice cracking. But I'm telling you now because I want to be honest. I don't want any more secrets between us. Her words hang in the air, and I can feel the tension creeping back in. Part of me wants to lash out, to accuse her of holding something back. But the other part, the part that still hopes, sees the effort she's making. All right, I say finally, my voice even. But if he contacts you again, you tell me immediately. No exceptions. I promise, she says, relief flooding her features. I nod, turning back to the dishes. The trust we're trying to rebuild feels like a delicate thread, stretched thin but not yet broken. Still, the mention of Alex stirs something in me, a reminder that this battle is far from over. The next day, I call Nick. I need you to keep tabs on Alex, I say. If he tries to contact Sarah again, I want to know. Understood, Nick replies without hesitation. You think he'll try something? I don't know, I admit, but I'm not taking any chances. As the days pass, I notice a change in Sarah. She's more present, more attentive. She makes an effort to rebuild the small, everyday moments we once took for granted. It's in the way she brings me coffee without being asked, the way she listens when I talk about my day, the way she reaches for my hand when she thinks I'm not looking. It's these small gestures that give me hope, even as doubt lingers in the back of my mind. One evening, as we sit on the couch watching an old movie, she leans into me, her head resting on my shoulder. It's a simple act, but it feels monumental. For the first time in months, I let myself relax, allowing the moment to wash over me. Do you think we'll be okay? She asks softly, her voice barely audible. I don't answer right away, my eyes fixed on the screen. Finally, I speak. I think we're trying. And that's more than we've done in a long time. She squeezes my hand, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I allow myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we can make it. The days continue to slip by in a fragile truce. Sarah and I tread carefully around each other, building something that feels like a foundation, but one misstep could send it all crumbling down. Trust is a hard thing to rebuild, especially when cracks run deep. One afternoon, as I'm finishing up a call in my home office, my phone buzzes with a text from Nick. We need to talk. Now. My stomach knots as I call him back. What's going on? Alex is stirring the pot again, Nick says, his voice low and grim. He's been asking questions about you, Chris. Digging into your business connections, trying to find leverage. Leverage? I repeat, anger simmering beneath my skin. Yeah, he's trying to figure out how far he can push you, Nick explains. I don't think he's let go of Sarah, either. My guess? He's hoping to make you crack so he can swoop back in. The blood drains from my face as Nick's words sink in. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. All right, I say, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Keep me updated. And if he crosses any lines, I want to know immediately. You got it, Nick replies. But Chris, watch your back. Guys like him don't play fair. I hang up, the weight of Nick's warning pressing down on me. Alex's persistence isn't just an annoyance, it's a threat, and one I can't afford to ignore. That evening, I don't tell Sarah about Nick's call. She's in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepares dinner. The sight of her should bring me some comfort, but all I can think about is Alex's smirk, his audacity to keep interfering in our lives. Over dinner, Sarah senses my tension. You're quiet tonight, she says, her voice cautious. Just a lot on my mind, I reply, forcing a smile. Work's been stressful. She nods, but her eyes linger on me, filled with concern. If there's something you want to talk about, not right now, I say, cutting her off. Let's just enjoy dinner. The rest of the evening passes in strained silence, the unspoken tension between us growing heavier with each passing minute. As I lie awake in bed that night, my mind races with plans. Alex wants to play games? Fine, but this time, I'm setting the rules. The next day, I call Nick again. What's his next move? I ask. He's been seen near Sarah's office, Nick replies. Nothing direct yet, but he's hanging around. Could be testing the waters. My grip tightens on the phone. I want him gone. Make sure he knows that. I'll take care of it, Nick assures me. But Chris, be prepared for anything. Guys like Alex don't back down easily. That evening, Sarah brings up counseling during dinner. Dr. Harris suggested we focus on rebuilding intimacy, she says, her tone tentative. I nod, trying to focus on her words. What does she have in mind? Small gestures, Sarah explains. Little things to show we're committed to each other. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to set aside my anger at Alex for the moment. All right, let's give it a shot. Her face lights up with a mixture of relief and hope, and for a moment, I feel a flicker of warmth. But it's quickly overshadowed by the lingering threat of Alex's interference. The next morning, I wake to find Sarah already gone. She left a note on the counter, a simple message wishing me a good day. It's a small thing, but it brings a faint smile to my face. Maybe this new path we're on isn't impossible after all. As I head to work, my phone buzzes again. This time, it's an image from Nick. It's Alex, standing outside Sarah's office building, his posture casual but his intent clear. The message is obvious. He's not going anywhere. I clench my jaw, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. This isn't just about me and Sarah anymore. It's about protecting what's left of my life, and I won't let anyone take that away. The image of Alex outside Sarah's office burns in my mind as I drive. My grip on the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white. This has gone on long enough. Alex's audacity isn't just infuriating, it's dangerous. He's playing with fire, and he doesn't realize how close he is to getting burned. By the time I reach the office, I've made up my mind. I park in a nearby lot and call Nick. I want him gone, I say, my voice low and steady. No warnings this time. Make it clear that if he shows his face near Sarah or me again, there will be consequences. You're sure about this? Nick asks, his tone serious. I've never been surer, I reply. Handle it. Nick sighs. All right, I'll take care of it. I hang up, my resolve firm. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming control. Alex has been pulling the strings for too long, and it's time to cut them. Later that day, Sarah texts me from work. Thinking of you. Let's talk tonight. The message is simple, but it carries weight. She's trying, and I can't deny the effort she's putting into fixing what she broke. I'll be home early, I reply. For now, Alex will have to take a back seat. My focus needs to be on Sarah and the fragile progress we're making. When I get home, Sarah is already waiting, a nervous energy about her. She set the table with candles and a bottle of wine, an effort to create a sense of intimacy we've both been avoiding. You didn't have to do all this, I say, my voice softer than usual. I wanted to, she replies, her eyes meeting mine. We need this. We sit down, the atmosphere tentative but warm. Over dinner, she tells me about her day, the mundane details of work and errands that somehow feel comforting in their normalcy. I share a few stories from my own day, and for the first time in weeks, we laugh together. I missed this, she says softly, her eyes glistening. I missed us. I reach across the table, taking her hand in mine. Me too, I admit, but we still have a long way to go. I know, she says, squeezing my hand, but I'm willing to fight for this, for us. The vulnerability in her voice stirs something inside me. For all the anger and betrayal, there's still a part of me that wants to believe we can rebuild, that what we had isn't entirely lost. After dinner, we move to the living room, the candles casting a soft glow. Sarah sits close to me, her head resting on my shoulder. It's a simple gesture, but it feels monumental, a step toward healing. As the evening winds down, I check my phone. There's a message from Nick. It's done. He got the message loud and clear. He won't be bothering you again. Relief washes over me, but it's tempered by the knowledge that Alex's absence doesn't erase the damage he caused. The real battle has always been between me and Sarah, and it's one we're still fighting. When I look at her, curled up beside me, I feel a flicker of hope. It's faint, but it's there. Maybe, just maybe, we can find our way back to each other. The days that follow are quieter, almost serene. Alex is gone, and for the first time in months, it feels like the dark cloud hanging over us has started to lift. Sarah and I continue our counseling sessions, diving deeper into the roots of our problems. It's not easy. The wounds are still fresh, and some days feel like we're taking one step forward and two steps back. But we keep showing up, and that has to count for something. One evening, Sarah suggests we take a weekend trip to the lake cabin. Her voice is hesitant, almost unsure, as she makes the proposal. It could be a fresh start, she says. A way to reconnect, away from everything. I hesitate. The cabin holds memories, some good, some tainted. But I see the hope in her eyes, and for once, I decide to let go of my reservations. All right, I say. Let's do it. The drive up is quiet but comfortable, the tension between us replaced by a tentative peace. When we arrive, the cabin feels different somehow, less like a battlefield and more like a sanctuary. We spend the first evening unpacking and preparing a simple dinner. It's mundane, but there's a rhythm to it that feels normal. The next day, Sarah surprises me by suggesting we go hiking. There's that trail we used to love, she says, her smile tinged with nostalgia. I nod, and we set out, the crisp mountain air invigorating. The trail winds through dense woods, the sunlight filtering through the leaves. We don't talk much, but the silence feels companionable, not strained. At the summit, we stop to take in the view. The lake glistens below us, the water reflecting the vibrant colors of the setting sun. Sarah turns to me, her expression soft. I need to say this, she begins, her voice steady. I know I hurt you, Chris, and I know that no matter how much I apologize, it won't erase what I did. But I love you. I never stopped, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you, if you let me. Her words catch me off guard, but there's a sincerity in her voice that's impossible to ignore. I look at her, really look at her, and for the first time in a long time, I see the woman I fell in love with, the woman who's been trying, against all odds, to make things right. I love you too, I say finally. But this isn't just about love, Sarah. It's about trust. And that's going to take time. I know, she says, her eyes glistening, but I'm not giving up. Neither am I realize. For all the pain and betrayal, there's still something worth fighting for. The journey back to each other won't be easy, but for the first time in months, it feels possible. That night, we sit by the fire, the warmth wrapping around us like a cocoon. Sarah leans against me, her head resting on my shoulder. It's a small moment, but it feels monumental, a promise of what could be. As the flames crackle and the stars twinkle overhead, I find myself thinking about the future. It's uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it doesn't feel daunting. It feels like a chance to rebuild, to heal, to rediscover the life we once dreamed of. We'll be okay, Sarah whispers, as if reading my thoughts. I tighten my arm around her, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Yeah, I say softly, I think we will. And for the first time, I believe it. Have you ever faced a situation where trust was broken but worth fighting to rebuild? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. If you enjoyed this journey of resilience and redemption, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another gripping tale. Let's keep the conversation going.